All right. Welcome back to True Crime Thursday with me, Lanie. I'm your host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast and True Crime Thursday on Get Vocal. So we have some pretty awesome breaking news if you are not aware. First, grab your drink if you haven't yet. I am drinking a Blue Moon Light Sky Citrus Sweet. It's so far been one of my favorite light beers to drink. My mom said she is drinking sweet tea tonight, and Miss AZ, I don't know what you're drinking, but put it in there. So we have some amazing news to share today. And if you haven't been on Twitter or social media in the last maybe hour or so, you may have missed it. But we have just found out that the Maricopa Sheriff's Department, or what are they called? Attorney General's office is finally charging Michael Turney with second-degree murder in the death of his stepdaughter, Alyssa Turney. Now, we know that this was only possible because of Sarah Turney, Alyssa's little sister's tenacity to keep fighting for Alyssa's justice, really, like truly finding justice for Alyssa. And I can't imagine the overwhelming feeling she must be feeling right now, trying to digest all of this, you know? So we are sorry. I don't know what happened there. We do want to extend like a really big, giant hug to her because it is truly just something that we are so happy for. So I am going to take a drink and cheers to Sarah finally being able to get justice, hopefully for her sister. Like we said, let me tell you something. 2 minutes. Party foul. Apologies. I watched the conference, whatever it's called, the news conference with the Maricopa County sheriffs, or I keep saying sheriffs, the attorney general, and a lot of people were really pissed off. And if you've been following Sarah's podcast, if you've been following her journey and the interactions she's had with the Phoenix PD, so in the news conference, they basically give a ton of kudos to the sheriff's department or the police department for never giving up and for doing all of this hard work. And trust me, I get it. We do need law enforcement to be able to investigate these crimes. But we have seen behind the scenes kind of how Sarah's been treated as a family member advocate and also as a victim of this crime. And she did get mentioned a couple of times, but it was very clear that the Maricopa why that keeps happening to me. So I'm going to stop moving because I don't know what's happening. But anyways, it was very clear that they did not want to give Sarah a ton of attention and they didn't want to give her the credit that she deserves. They want to say, yes, the Phoenix police has been working in conjunction with Sarah or they've collaborated with her, but they did not go as far as to thank her for any of these things that she did. It's so freaking annoying. It's insane to me. So we are, Susie, my Susie, our Susie. We are very excited for her to be finally getting the justice that girl, grab a spot so we can talk about this latest trial or the latest episode. Susie wrote the last episode, so she has a lot of knowledge on it too. And so we can talk about it if she wants to join. If not, then don't worry about it. It's okay. So we're very happy and excited for Sarah that she got the justice that she so needed, which is so amazing. So we are very happy for her on that. So today, hello, Susie.
Hey.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear y'all. I may not have my...
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear
I
me now?
cannot hear you. So make sure you're on mute, so you may just need to raise the volume on your end.
Oh.
Or you're not on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hang on.
And for those who don't know, she is... Oh, you can hear Susie? I can't hear her. Is it me?
Weird.
Who else can hear Susie? Maybe it's me, you guys. Oh, my mom can... Hey, everybody can hear Susie except me. Why is this?
No bueno.
All right, let's see. Hold on. I'm going to go to this. Susie except me. Why is this? No, yeah. Okay, I can hear you on that. I can't hear you on this. So strange. Hold on. Okay. Well, that's okay. You guys, what's happening? You know what? This is not fair today. Anyways, so, okay, well, I'm glad you guys can hear Susie, so that's perfect. That works out. Susie, would you mind going into a little bit about this case? So we had a couple of people on Twitter and sometimes in Facebook talk to us about the mental illness piece of Larry's case and how the death penalty was applied in this case. I have my own opinion on it after reading everything and seeing how this kind of played out. It's Texas, so I'm not surprised that we just willy-nilly applied the death penalty here. So how did this story come to be in terms of why it was selected for the podcast, and also kind of your thoughts on the death penalty in this particular case with the history of mental illness that had been documented for Larry?
I think we've had this one on the back burner for a while because we do kind of like to highlight those injustices, because I feel like anytime anybody is put to death that has some kind of, the diminished capacity, a lower IQ, things like that, it's just justice is not served in those cases. Prison is supposed to actually be about reform and, punishment to a degree, but inmates should be reformed when they're there. He did apparently, from the time he was about 14 on, was mentally ill. His mother and father tried for years and years to get him the assistance he needed, and they couldn't afford it. This was many decades ago when it was definitely a hindrance.
But they
money side
also told them, which I think comes in later, is that they also told them that unless he was violent, they weren't going to do anything about it.
Yeah, they pretty much were just like, they had to have the bed space at two separate hospitals that he went to. And they essentially told his parents that, well, unless he's violent, we can't do anything, and we're going to release him. He was never on medications. Even if he had been, he didn't have anybody to really watch over that. And, a lot of people think he was triggered because, and this is not to victim blame at all, but a lot of people think he was triggered because he did get involved with a man, and that kind of messed with him, and that's why he ended up doing what he did.
Yeah, and it makes sense because a lot of people had basically said the same thing after he had been arrested and charged with these murders. Is they were like, we didn't know that he was, engaging in that type of behavior, I guess. They're meeting with other men and stuff like that, or creating a relationship with this person, and that may have triggered him, which we know that with mental illnesses, especially when they're violent crimes that happen afterwards, that they can be triggered over something completely innocuous. That it is not something that will just pop up because they said, oh, you're crazy. And they're like, oh, you said I'm crazy, so I'm going to act crazy now. That's not really how it works sometimes. Sometimes it is something very out of the blue, very innocuous that they focus on. And then that leads them to commit crimes, unfortunately, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it started even before he got into the relationship with another man, when his wife, or his common law wife, left
mm-hmm.
him, and he kind of started spiraling at that time. So it was just a really sad case. That one, it kind of, and I didn't tell you about it because I was like, oh, she won't assign me any like this. It just kind of left me feeling really
Down. Yeah,
yeah, it was just
it
horrible
is.
because he didn't really have the capacity to understand. He said he thought it was Christmas time.
Yeah. He was like,
Going
great.
to the yeah, you know, and he saved his food for later.
Mm-hmm.
He thought he was coming
Ugh,
back.
I know. So
So
I generally am not for the death penalty anyways, right? So
yeah.
just because we've been doing true crime for so long, we know that there are so many cases out there that are wrongful convictions,
Mm-hmm.
people who have been put to death and then later exonerated. Um, so I just don't trust the system enough to be accurate to move forward with any type of death penalty situation, if you will. So
Yeah.
I am very much of the notion that I get that we have it, and right now there's not anything we can do about it. But in this case with Larry, it was so obvious that he
Yeah.
was mentally incapacitated by mental illness. And then also, because of that mental illness, he was also, he had a low IQ, right? I believe also he was
Mm-hmm.
very kind of
Yeah.
slow in these things and he didn't understand it, which to me, if you think about this, like you always hear that these people have the emotional intelligence of like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. I'm like, that's like taking a 5 and 6-year-old and holding them responsible for doing something crazy
Mm-hmm.
like this. And I don't mean to be offensive with the word crazy, so I apologize on that. But doing something like that, that's kind of out of the norm for typical
Mm-hmm.
behavior. So I don't feel that it was an appropriate response to this case. I do think that they should have likely put him in a mental institution so that he could have gotten assistance or so that he could have been monitored there. I don't think that our prison system then or now is truly rehabilitation. I think it's just a place to put
Yeah.
people.
It
But
is.
that's just me. That's what I think. um,
I mean, that's valid. I mean, and I'm Southern, grown up around conservatives, and I was really always kind of yeah, the death penalty when they for really really heinous crimes. Like we did Jack
mm-hmm,
Jones and we did Ronald Gene Simmons. I didn't really see things wrong with the death penalty in those cases until it really struck me after they actually put Jack Jones to death, and I was like, he was a person. I knew him.
mm-hmm,
I actually worked in the jail where he was. But taking that away from it, the fact that we just should not be killing people, it doesn't stop anything, first of all. It doesn't create any kind of decrease in violent
mm-mm,
crimes. But it also costs society so much to try these cases because they have to have specialized attorneys and all this, and then to keep people on death row.
mm-hmm.
So even if you take the humanist factor out of it and just look at it from that way, what are we winning? What are we getting ahead by putting people to death? And then, you look at, is it Todd Willingham that he was put to death for setting his
Oh
house on
yeah.
fire with his two
Mm-hmm.
kids? And now they've come out and all these experts have looked at and he probably did not do it. My gut was he did not do it. The death penalty just doesn't get us anywhere.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. And truly, like when I think about the correspondence that I have with, I'm talking right now to two inmates, particularly in Georgia at the Pulaski unit prison that's out there. And both of these women have been convicted of violent crimes. So we've heard in the letters episode about Militia Gaucher. I've talked about her a few times here and there, and she has a few episodes on the
Yeah.
podcast. And we talk frequently. Like even if I haven't produced any episodes, it's because I'm trying to figure out something new to do with that. I'm engaging with her attorney for her hopeful parole. Um, She was 14 at the time of her conviction. She was given a life sentence. Um, the and she's 30 something now, about 34, 35. So she's been in jail for the majority of her teenage and adult years. So she was initially living in Florida with her mother, and she had been difficult, if you will. I mean, she's 13, 14, so she's going through that teenager phase. I'm sure my mom and probably you with a teenager can understand that. But she was being difficult, and she was going through kind of a rebellious phase. So her mom sent her to live with her father, who she really didn't know. And that side of the family, she did not have a relationship with at all. So she basically was just like, here, go to Georgia and do this. And go live with your dad and maybe you'll be better. And she did it because she really didn't have any other option, right? And some parents do that hoping that the outcome will be good. And that's what we hope. But what we found is that when she went to live with her father, she began to be sexually abused by her biological uncle on her father's side. And she was living in the same house as her father, her grandmother, her paternal grandmother, and her uncle. So she had attempted to stop the abuse and it didn't work. And so she had met somebody who basically was gonna, she kind of did get in with the wrong crowd there. She met a boy essentially and was like, yeah, I'm gonna rob, I'm gonna take my grandma's car and drive back to Florida and go back to my mom's house or whatever. And so she did a stick up essentially at her grandmother's house and ended up killing her grandmother. So when I think about that, like, I get it. Like, I don't think that what she did was right. And she doesn't either. Like, she's completely remorseful about it. And you can really tell that through the stuff and the work that she's done while in prison. Like, she has completed so many paralegal courses. She's done a bunch of stuff to further her education, and she's continuing to do that. And she's very open about the crime. And initially, when I reached out to her, I didn't feel one way or the other about her. I was like, I don't care. If you did X, Y, Z, I'm not judging you, but I'm also not advocating for you. And that changes over time because you get to know them and you're like, wow, you learn more about their life story and they tell you things and you read when the Google search on her, you read that the attorney that she had assigned to her also had prosecuted her father and put him behind bars or helped defended her father, and he ended up going to jail. And he was notorious for setting up African Americans to take plea deals because he was like, you're going to be in jail for the rest of your life if you don't do this, or you should fight. And so she took a plea thinking she would be able to get parole, and that's not the case. She has been denied parole the last few times. So I am working with her attorney not on the Innocence Project, but I forgot the group's name, but they basically help minority women who have been victims of crimes and then have perpetrated crimes as minors with attempting to get their parole done, because she could do a lot of really good work, I think. We'll see about that. But I talk to her pretty frequently. Almost every week we have a conversation. So it's been hard to keep up with the letters and stuff. So I was like, oh gosh, but we're going to try. And then I'm talking to another woman. Her name's Elizabeth. She has been in jail since she was in her late teens, early 20s. And she's now, I think, in her mid 40s or 50s. And she was kind of the same story. She was dating a guy, and him and his friend had asked her to drive them over to a guy's house that they knew. Well, those two ended up robbing and murdering that guy, and she drove basically the getaway car. So they essentially said, well, you're the one who drove the getaway car, so you're just as guilty as they are. But she says that she has that she had no idea. There was all these documents. If you look in her appeal documents and stuff, there's a lot of justification out there for why she shouldn't have been away for life. Like, I don't think you're super guilty because you're choosing to drive away, or driving a car. if you're admitting to it. So she's been, again, same thing as Militia. She's been very forthcoming, very open about her crimes, very remorseful, and she's one of the funniest people that I know, which is really strange because she has such a great sense of humor, and it surprises me how hopeful they are. It kind of makes me sad too, because I know how these systems work, and I know that they're constantly being told no. And so every time a parole hearing comes around, it does make me a little bit sad, because I feel like they're never going to get that chance to be released. And I told them that. I said, there are people who are going to hear your story and think that you are where you belong. And it doesn't matter how old you were when this happened, but you are where you belong, and you need to be in jail for the rest of your life. And then there are other people who can empathize with your situation, who've probably been a troubled teen or dealt with troubled teens or made stupid decisions. But I always think, like, I made some pretty stupid decisions when I was 14 and 15. Would I want those held against me forever? No.
Yeah.
So, mine weren't as egregious as this, but still, I think that you have to look really into it. And they didn't give, especially Militia, they did not give her a fair shot at being 14 years old and basically scaring her into taking the deal that she took. So it's just crazy to me. Yeah, terrible. It's insane.
It is.
But it's things like that, that make me think, like, these two women were also victims in their own right, but they also were perpetrators of crimes. So they do have to be held responsible. I'm not saying that they don't have to be, but they do need to be held responsible. I don't think that life is fair for this instance, for both of them, because they were both very young. But of course, it's not my call. But I have, on Militia's side, advocated. I have not. Elizabeth hasn't asked me to, and Militia didn't ask me to. I kind of asked if I could write her attorney or something. So there we have it. But Susie and I were having a really interesting conversation, and it's probably going to be a little controversial, but I'm excited because we've been talking about this. She kind of piqued my interest. I forgot where I saw you write something about it, and I was like, hold on, tell me more about this. So I saw Susie post something about Scott Peterson, the convicted murderer of Lacey Peterson, his wife, or Lacey Rocha, as people prefer to have her called. And there's been a lot of talk around the Scott Peterson case that he is for sure guilty and that they got it right. And then there's also people who point out and say, like, hey, no, you're missing all these. Not like the crazy cuckoos who are like, there's no way, the ones who are like in love with him, not those. But there are people who believe that the investigators did miss things. They didn't follow up correctly. They bungled the police work. And so there's enough, what is it called? Reasonable doubt that he likely did not commit the murder. And then there's also additional women who had gone missing, pregnant women who had gone missing in that area. So I am not one way or the other, right? When I went to Berkeley and I saw the marina, I was like, dude, how could he have rolled his boat in here with this body and then just pushed it? I mean, if you've ever been to the Berkeley Marina, like the actual one, there's only one. So the Berkeley Marina, if you actually have been there, it's wide open. Like, there's no space truly that you can hide in, I would say, from what I saw. It's like I can see people out in boats. I could see somebody dumping things. Sure, maybe at 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe not. And during the winter time, maybe not. But it was very, very open. And there was a ton of people around. I went again in the summer, so I can't speak to like how it is in the winter time, but I thought that was really interesting. But Susie, you have some theories about kind of what the police messed up. Not so much about Scott's innocence or anything like that, but it's truly about the investigation.
Yeah, I don't really think he got a fair trial. Number one at the top of the list is that when they asked for a change of venue, the judge allowed it, but only moved it like an hour and a half away. So really, the media had already compromised his trial even there. Before I even get into the investigation, the jurors, there were 3 jurors evicted from the jury during the course of the trial. But there were 2 other jurors. One of them went out like after they'd already sentenced him or found him guilty, but before they sentenced him, one juror went to a bar and started bragging that he was going to get Scott Peterson, that they were going to give him life or give him the death penalty. And then another one, this female was just, she'd lied on her questionnaire about had she ever had legal problems, been in court cases, things like that. And she just said no. But she had sued somebody for something. So there were problems there. But then, like you said, there were other women in the area who were pregnant, who went missing. There was a woman who was 8 months pregnant the same day Lacey went missing, who had seen these strange guys outside her shop that she owned staring at her for like 2 hours. Enough so that she called the police about it because they tried to get into her store. But then, so there was that. There are sightings of Lacey after Scott had left for the marina already, but they discounted those. I mean, there's just a lot there that, you know, if he could ever win an appeal and get another trial, there's enough reasonable doubt involved. And again, I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. I'm kind of like you. I just feel like he deserved a fair trial.
I think everybody thinks that.
I felt like,
I mean, in general, that you deserve a fair trial, but there are people who are just like, lynch him up and send him off. He did it without truly looking at the evidence and just believing it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was all circumstantial. They had no DNA. They could never find where he killed her in the house like they all suspected. I mean, the nail was in his coffin immediately after Amber Fry came forward.
Well, he also had very suspicious behavior. He did not help himself with those phone calls of like, I'm in Paris, you know?
No. Oh, yeah. He was, I mean, he was out there. But when they arrested him, the day they said he was trying to flee, he was actually going to a golf course to play golf with his family. You know, I mean, it's just little things like that. But the case has a lot of the same shades as the Chris Watts case. But, you know, Chris, like, broke down immediately pretty much and confessed. And
we're lucky we have that body cam footage. And we could see him, like, start breaking down. And you start to notice those things. And you're like, oh, dude, you're giving yourself away. Like with Scott, I mean, we didn't really get that privilege of being able to see body cam footage. I think if we have, maybe that would help change one way or the other how you feel about it. But I look at that case, I look at the Scott Peterson case, and then I look at the Susan Powell case. And I'm like, it was so clear that Josh did something to her. It was so clear that day that there was something wrong. There had been a history of strange behavior going on. And then you look at Scott Peterson and you're like, they were normal up until X point. What changed? What, you know, prompted him to do this? And I think one of his sisters runs the Innocence website, kind of hoping that he'll get an appeal or something. And so I don't know. Like, I think sometimes with him, I think it's just because of truly the way he looks, like he's very smug on camera. I think that also is what causes people to jump towards immediate guilt without truly looking at everything. You know, I mean, you see that all the time. Anytime you see a story, you have those people who are like, lynch them up and do whatever X to them. And you're like, that's just not how it works. We don't do that, you know? So,
I
don't know.
Yeah, he did himself no favors because he didn't show a lot of emotion. I mean, and that, I think that was one reason people just automatically immediately assumed he was guilty, because he didn't go to the vigil. That was when he was in, or he went to the vigil, but he didn't really
he did. That's when he made that Paris call, when he was at the vigil.
Yeah. The calls still kind of crack me up because, like, he's even talking about these imaginary friends on the calls to her, like talking about his friends in Spain. But I just think, you know, change of venue, that would have been one thing to kind of
actually go to the voir dire process.
You know, yeah, I mean, just the jury selection.
Yeah,
it's just,
and it's sad that there's a lot of technical stuff that they bungled, and still got
Mm-hmm.
the verdict that they got. And you wonder if like they hadn't
Yeah.
bungled it, if they had really done like their super due diligence on it, if maybe that would have changed the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
or if he would have still been found guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the investigators on his case, like for his side, he's written a really brief book that I haven't read yet, but it kind of talks about outlines all the evidence that they missed and everything. So kind of looking forward to reading that. And then of course Scott had the sister that
Oh
was
yeah.
adopted out that wrote the book 33 Reasons Why My Brother Scott is
I'm like,
Guilty.
you don't even know your brother.
Yeah,
No offense
okay.
if you're adopted.
So it is controversial. Anytime you see
Mhm.
this, and again, it has nothing to do with the way he looks. I'm not one of those women who just thinks he's hot, whatever. I don't want to have a jailhouse romance. That's
It
not
might
for
work
me.
though. We should think about
Um, it it could work. It could actually work. For me, it would work because I don't
it. There
like
you go.
anybody up in my grill.
Hey, and we would
Um,
definitely have the great
but
inside scoop for TCMC. So you're like,
exactly. Yeah, it would definitely work. So I am gonna write him. I do have his address. I meant to reach out to his sister earlier this week, and I've been really busy. But I just kind of want to find out a
yeah.
little bit more about this because it's
It's really
just
interesting. I didn't think about it until truly when we were talking about it, and I was like, oh dang, like there is a lot more I could look into here and just read on my own too.
yeah,
It's really interesting like how we get into cases just randomly, right? Like I was telling you that I wanted to get like my little spark back about writing a case and researching it all the way through because I was like, I haven't done that in a
yeah,
while. Like we've been in the flow of how it
mm-hmm.
works here behind the scenes, which is great and awesome. But
Yeah,
we also like I want to be able to do that stuff too on just my own again and be like, okay, yeah. Because we've been really ahead with the show, which has been great. We
mm-hmm.
moved to a weekly format and we
Yeah,
are still, like staying on top of it. And I think for an indie show
mm-hmm.
that's able to do weekly with the team that I have, which is amazing, is great. And I mean, it's right now, we have Susie, myself, Brittany, and Nico. Right now, that's all we're doing because we are so ahead. So we haven't had to bring any more people on because that's what we were doing is like bringing people on so that we could keep up with the thing because mostly me, procrastinator. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, we're super ahead, which is great. And we've gotten some really interesting cases presented to us and that we're researching and going through. Like our research file is so big right now. And Brittany, I think, added a few more cases to that here recently. So there's a lot to pick from. But one case that was
Mm-hmm.
suggested to me on Facebook, in the Facebook group that you just recently joined, even though you've been with the show for over a year, is the Dina Schlosser case that's out of Plano, Texas, which is my former hometown. And I had
Mm-hmm.
completely forgotten about that case because I mentioned in the show, kind of in the earlier episodes, I think, not Hometown Horror, but another one where I talk about my friend. I think I dubbed her Christy in the episode, but her mom had actually murdered her two twin sisters. And all through high school and pretty much elementary school, we went to the same schools. She would always talk about how her mom was crazy and her mom was like a super religious fanatic and she was very overprotective of Christy. um, and she would like make her like she wouldn't let her do anything. Like she was truly one of those helicopter parents before helicopter parents became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was super into making sure she did everything right, that she was home on time, that she was just like this perfect person. And Christy rebelled, like you would expect. And she kind of went towards the emo slash
Mm-hmm.
goth culture and was really rebellious in that sense. So she was agnostic or atheist, and she was just like, you know what, I'm doing my own thing. And she chose to live with her father because he was more lax, and her parents were divorced. Her mom had remarried, had two of her daughters, which were the twins, and she lived right 2 streets down from our high school, and she lived maybe 4 blocks away from me at the time. And I remember when she came to school and she was just like, dude, my mom's crazy. Like, we all had art class together. And so she'd be like, dude, my mom's crazy. Like, she's like being weird about it. And she would tell us stories about it. And we're like, dude, yeah, your mom is crazy. But you don't think that it's to that extreme. So I have a cousin who works for the Plano PD. And I remember hearing it from her that this had happened, that Christy was supposed to be home that afternoon when everything went down, but she ended up going and staying at her dad's and not going over. And her mom was trying to get her there, I think. So her mom did have a psychotic break where she believed that she was saving the twins from the devil. And so she, I believe, drowned them in the tub and then laid their bodies out on the in her bed, like in her master bedroom. And then she attempted to end her life in the garage, and her husband got there and saw what she did and knew that it was kind of like the same thing with Andrea Yates. Like, you know that there's something mentally going on, but you, for whatever reason, refuse to acknowledge it or do anything about it and just let it go on. And so that's basically what happened with her mom, is they kind of just let this happen. And unfortunately, those 2 little girls lost their lives because of it. And I remember her coming back to school like a week later. And I was like, how is she back in school? And she acted like everything was fine. And I was like, wow. And you were just like, wow, she's probably really messed up from this. And, you know, when you're a kid, you're just like, I'm going to stay away from you because you're not like sobbing in the hallway about your little sister being murdered. And so you probably, you know, like you're a creep or something. And I felt like that. I thought it was very strange that she didn't show any emotions, you know, but we become adults and realize that people like compartmentalize those feelings to be able to move forward and live their lives. So it was very strange. But her mother did get arrested for 2nd-degree murder, but she got acquitted due to insanity. So she ended up going to a mental health facility and was released after a few months. So she didn't have to really, in a court of law, pay for the murders of her daughters, right? Because they were like, yeah, you were definitely in a psychotic break, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like the Andrea Yates thing. And then you have people like Dina Schlosser, who's kind of in that same category, where she also believed on a religious side that she was protecting her child, but then she goes and mutilates her, right? You know, like, this is the story, if you recall, whoever's out there listening in Facebook land or YouTube land, if you're not here in the Get Vocal land, she was the one who sawed off her baby's arms. And then that baby ended up obviously bleeding out. And she was arrested and charged with murder. But she was also a part of a strange church that's in Plano. It's right by our high school and by our library that's there. But it's this really strange church. I think it's called like First Assembly of God or something like that. Like, Mom, if you're in here, just remind me what that church is called. But they used to have their services televised on like public access. And so there would be like, they were like the dancing type, like the preacher guy would be like at the pulpit, and then there would be people like dancing all around, and they'd be at church for like hours, like 4 or 5 hours. It was creepy. And then they finally, after this Dina Schlosser thing happened, people started calling the church and trying to find out like, oh, what's going on. And those videos of them on the public access channel started being uploaded to YouTube, and people were really like, what's this cult you're a part of? So they shut down the TV channel because they were getting a lot of hate for it. And so you're not really allowed to go there at all. And I think that the pastor who is the pastor for that church lives there now. Oh, Water of Life Church. That's what it's called. Yeah, it's very strange. Very strange church. So I'm interested to do that. Because it's so close to home. So I really do want to get in on that case. But these cases suck, especially when they involve little kids for us. I mean, we have to really space those out. I know that there are some shows out there who can do them back to back to back to back to back because it brings the listeners, unfortunately. But we truly do try to invest more in just the gore of the story. if that makes sense. Like we try to tell you the full story from beginning to end. And with things like this Larry Keith Robinson episode that we did, the goal is to obviously have you thinking about how mental health can affect people in these types of positions and how the death penalty was used to punish this person who really didn't have the mental capacity to understand what even was going on or what he had done, you know?
Yep.
So that's just.
There's a, sorry, there's another case there in Texas. I cannot think of the lady's name. It's something Jeter, and her husband were splitting up, and she had basically a psychotic break, and they had separated, and he had the kids, and she picked up their two daughters and drove them somewhere, like to her hometown, like an hour away or something, and she killed the one daughter. She sliced her throat, and she tried to kill the other one, but the other one lived.
Deborah Jeter.
Kind of the same thing. She had a psychotic break, and yes, I knew it was Jeter. I couldn't think of the first name, but that one was just
strange.
It's the same way. Those just kind of, I do like leaving people thinking about, was this the right way?
Yeah.
Was this appropriate? He really should have been institutionalized.
Yeah.
In a hospital, as opposed to in a jail, where I'm sure he probably was beaten, and I'm sure that other inmates, because he killed a little boy, and so that it was just a sad case. And I've written how many for you, and honestly, other than Cherish Periwinkle, which got to me, this one just did. It kind of left me feeling kind of really bad, because it just didn't sit well with me that it
is strange. The Cherish Periwinkle one, though, I was like, that is when, to me, the death penalty is appropriate. I think everybody who thinks about what happened to Cherish, it's so insane to me. Like, that case still pisses me off, and I did a Get Vocal on it, and I don't want to get into it again because I was very pissed off. Like, I get it. We went through the whole case or whatever on one Get Vocal. But my biggest thing was, I'm not blaming Rain, but I feel like she should have been more observant of what her daughter was doing and where her daughter was. Because you don't just let your kid, especially in the world that we live in now, and it's so sad to say that, you just do not let your kid go with a strange person that you don't know, woman or man. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, go ahead, you're a woman. Women are also perpetrators of pedophilia, and they also engage in that type of conduct. They may not be as prevalent or as well known as the males who engage in that, but there are female pedophiles out there. It just is what it is, and it's unfortunate. But I would never trust anybody who I met. I wouldn't have even gotten in his car. I'd been like, you know what? Sorry, thanks. None of it makes sense to me. She still lost her daughter. It still sucks. But you wonder if she would have been just a little bit more vigilant and been like, nope, you can't take my kid, or not even have taken the ride, then I know she had that psychic thing where she knew something was going to happen to Cherish, and I kind of wonder if, oh my God, I feel so bad saying this, but I kind of wonder if she took the ride knowing like something was going to happen and just be like making fate come true. I don't know. I hate to think that. So I really hope that that's not the case. And I don't think that that's the case, but it is something to think about when you have people who make those statements on purpose. So.
Yeah. I mean, it was very odd. There was no way, having two daughters, both of them, one's still a teenager, she's grown. The other one is the ripe age of 30 now, and we've got a missing woman here in Arkansas. And that's where I lived. That's where I grew up. And so that one's really hitting home. But there's no way that I would have, you know, I couldn't have gotten in the car with somebody strange. And
Yeah.
I don't like
I don't
anybody
trust
talking to me,
anybody.
let alone my kids. I was very protective of,
Mhm.
especially the youngest one, because she lost her dad when she was 4. And I had a guy I went to high school with that wanted to date me. We had one lunch date that was terrible. I'll have to email you about it because it's funny. But he called me that night and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to take Livy
Nope.
fishing and blah blah blah." And I'm like, dude, this is over before it's beginning.
Yeah.
Nobody gets close to my daughter.
Yeah.
Period. Like, doesn't happen. And because it was just weird. Like, we had a lunch date and he's already making
Yeah.
all these great
And you
plans to
hate to
go
think about
take
it, but
her
I'm like,
thing
that's a red
places. And
flag
I'm going,
to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, that's just
And
bizarre.
I get it. There are
That
some
is
guys who
bizarre
genuinely
behavior.
love children,
Um,
not in a sexual way, who do want to spend time with them, but unfortunately,
yes.
the pedophiles have ruined it for you. So there is no way
Yes, they
that
have.
that will ever happen. Even with family members, because I've shared pretty much multiple times that I'm also a victim of child abuse in terms of like being sexually molested and things like that. Um, but even with
Mm-hmm.
family members, there's just no way that I would make that decision because the
Yep.
person who did it to me was somebody we trusted, and so you just don't know
Mm-hmm.
who's coming into your house and who you're letting around your children. So it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's how I am with my nieces when they were younger. Now they're old, like 18 and 21, and one's about to have a baby. Oh my God. And I think
Yeah.
she may have the baby today. So yay. That's the other bit of good news that we'll see if I become a great aunt at the ripe age of 32. And yeah, and then I have my
Oh
little
wow.
niece Willow, who's everybody's seen on Facebook, and then I have a new baby nephew coming in February of next year. So I just I treat them like I would treat my own kids and just be like, listen, nothing will happen to you on purpose on
Mm-hmm.
my end. Like I will do my best. And I know things happen, it is what it is,
Yeah.
but I'll do my best to make sure everything is okay. I did want to quickly
Yeah.
announce the winner for the book A Gun in My Gucci with Elaine Smith that she wrote. She was on our last Get Vocal stream that we did, and she was amazing and awesome. And she actually complimented the show and was like, the show is really well done, and the Get Vocal was really well done. You were more prepared than any other person that I've talked to lately. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Um, so the person who won the A Gun in My Gucci book is going to be Liz Hannigan. So congratulations, Liz. She's also been on our Get Vocal stream for a while. So congratulations, Liz Hannigan, on winning the book. I will be replying to you here shortly and letting you know that you won. And so I will be sending that out to you. I am behind on mailing stuff for people. So just know that that is just the life I'm leading right now. And I will be sending out stuff early next week when I get some more merch in. But other than that, we are good. So, oh, Liz, you're in here. Great. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's a really good book. And she has signed it. But we have some really good cases coming up for the show, I think. The next case, we're going to be doing the bowls.
Yes, and
I know. I saw
series.
that. I saw your
I have
note
a
in
lot
there.
to
I was like,
carry.
oh God, we're going to have
Yeah.
to talk about that.
Yeah. I, yeah, I talked
She
to
loves
Brittany
stuff
for a
like
long
that,
time
dude.
about it yesterday.
Um, and then we are also going to
Oh
be
yeah.
doing another spy case. I talked about it when Elaine was on, but we are going to be doing Robert Hansen. So he was on the FBI side this last time we did the CIA. So now we're talking about Robert Hansen. So it's going to be fun. And Jess is doing that one because she can't do gory type of episodes. And I was like, well, here, do this one. So she gets really sensitive with stuff like that. So that's all there. All right, folks. Well, that is going to be the end of our broadcast today. I know I'm ending it just a little bit early, but that's okay. I think, have gotten through everything we want to get through. And then, like I said, Liz, I'll be sending you an email so that you know you won officially. And then I already have your address, so I'll go ahead and ship the book out. Susie is, in case anybody who's late or doesn't know, Susie is our head writer and researcher here at True Crime Fan Club. She's responsible for the Larry Keith Robinson episode and pretty much the latest episodes you hear. Susie's kind of our head person who loves to deep dive into things, which is why I love having her as a part of the team. And so you really have seen the progression on it. So it's really great. So thank you for being a part of the team. You're amazing, and I love you.
I love you. I love being part of the team. And Brittany told me yesterday that my willingness to
Oh
go
yeah,
into
she
deep
loves that
rabbit
show
holes
for
is what she
sure.
liked.
Or not that show. She loves that. I mean, she's the same way.
Because
She's
I
like,
was,
we'll deep dive into
yeah.
everything, and I'm like, can you just tell me the story, please? Tell me what's going on. But she's very much the same way.
I'll I'll spend an hour looking for on my time. Like I was looking for an obituary on one of the detectives the other day, and I looked and looked and looked. It's like, okay, I'm going
Oh,
to bed.
and the other bit. Oh, look at that baby. Hi, little puppy. The other bit of great news is that the
That's
Golden
River.
State Killer, who I will not name because he's a piece of crap, but the Golden State Killer is also being mocked in court, which is great, by the victims of his crimes. And if you watch the last few
Awesome.
court hearings on YouTube, you can catch them live, or you can look at Jen Carroll's A Lawyer's Daughter on Twitter. Her mother, or her father and stepmother, were a victim of the Golden State Killer. So she's been posting the episodes or the videos so you can watch the live court testimony. And it is truly amazing that they're able to say the things they want to say. I will say that we all know what the Golden State Killer has zipped up there, and this is what someone did during their victim impact statement. And the frail old man that he is pretending to be in front of the cameras is not accurate at all. So I'm glad that he has to sit there pretending he's so infirm and can't react to these people who are just endlessly mocking him, which is
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And Bonnie was also there. So, spoiler alert, if you listen to The Man in the Window or you know anything about the GSK, Bonnie was also there. So, it was a great opportunity for her to also speak her truth and get justice for her on her end, even though she truly wasn't a victim in the same sense that the other people were. She was terrorized by the GSK prior to him going on this rampage that he did. So it was really great to see her get that last word in. And I'm so happy for these people who get to tell their truth. And I'm glad it's over for them, you know? So, anyways, okay, stopping the broadcast.
Absolutely.
But